Polish archer. Hi, Misha here, and this video isn't exactly a response to Jay's recent one, but it was inspired by it. In that video, he said that his interest in firearms was primarily shooting, and then with collecting as a secondary, and then history as a distant third, kind of last place. And he said that it's kind of polar opposite to my own thoughts and feelings. And he's not wrong. So I thought I would talk about why I do own guns. And I would like to kind of talk about one thing that's maybe a little misunderstood. Yes, historical value is probably my number one thing. I love history. I have since I was a child. There's a hobby horse there. I studied it in university. It's just something that interests me. But to put collecting over shooting is not really correct with me. Although my life, my situation, has kind of made that inevitable that collecting has kind of become more important than shooting, even if I'd prefer to have shooting higher on the list. I'll explain throughout the video. And so what I thought I would do, I want to grab 3 guns from each of 4 categories. Handguns, shotguns, and then for rifles, I want to do pistol caliber, like PCC, say Carbines, and true rifle caliber. And I want to explain, with each one, why I own it. I'm going to try to bring out an example, and I own this one for history. I own this one because it's collectible, and I own this one because I just like shooting it. And we're going to start off with our 13th kind of bonus gun, because I also want to point out that sometimes these change. This is, of course, my Polish archer made by FB Radom. And when I bought this, these were not collectible. In fact, they were trying to give them away. They were dropping the price. I primarily bought this, as Jay bought his, as a shooter. That was number 1. Historical interest was number 2, because I knew, of course, about the WZ-96. And collectability was a far distant, because at that time they weren't. I did really enjoy configuring it, getting the right stock, the right grip, extra mags, the right handguard. And this has been shot a good amount. It's a great shooter to this day, one I still at least bring out a couple of times a year as time allows. But of course, when the IO deal with FB went tits up, these went very expensive, and a lot of people sold theirs. And others who shot them were lamenting the fact that they did shoot them and didn't keep them new in the box. I was never one of those. My attitude was the enjoyment I got out of shooting this could not be compensated for by any extra money it might bring if I were to sell it. And anyway, I did not and do not want to sell it. Now, of course, these are still desirable, but with the new Atlantic/AOA imports, they're not as in quite high demand, although these still come with the selector switch, whereas the older or the newer guns do not. So that gives it something. So even though I didn't buy it for collectible purposes, it has become collectible over time. But I don't know. For me, when someone collects, the pursuit, the finding, and the knowing you possess it is the main reason. I've known a lot of people that really, really, really want a gun, and then when they get it, they look at it, they put it in the safe, and then they don't touch it for 6 months or a year. I'm not that way. Even if it's not shooting my guns, I get them off the rack pretty frequently. I kind of cycle through them. I like to inspect them. I like to hold them. I definitely appreciate them for what they are. I really enjoy mechanical things. That's why I get so into details about changes in the pattern. I love mechanical things and how they work and little differences. like forged to cast parts, or a different operating system, how the AK is a long stroke, and the SKS is a short stroke, and the AR is a direct impingement, or, internal piston if you wish. So that's another thing that interests me that wasn't mentioned, was just how they work. And of course, in my situation, being blind, the only way I really know a gun, I can't look at pictures. So if I want to know what something looks like and how it works, I really need to have hands-on. And just having 5 or 10 minutes with hands-on in a gun shop is often not enough, because we all discover things days, weeks, months, even years after owning a gun. Little things that we might have first overlooked. So with that, let's jump to our first category, handguns. M45A1. Plus, hit the gun, 1911A1. Mark 23. So as you saw, these are all technically shooters. I will shoot them all. And they all do have a collectible and historical side. But of course the scales can move. Starting off with the Ithaca. I already owned a 1911A1, a Remington Rand. I had no real desire to have two, but when this one came in a year or two ago, I was gonna do my typical thing where I put them side by side, figure out which one I like, keep it, sell the other. In the end, I never did. 2020 was a very busy year, and I got to thinking, the 1911A1 is only getting more and more collectible, more and more desirable. If I can, just hang on to both for a while, see how things go, Always can sell something later, but once you sell it, that's it. So while I do like shooting these old GI 1911s, rattling us and all, and there's certainly tons of history, it's not a, we know the history, it's a service gun, and I already had one, so yeah, I mostly do have this because they're collectible and valuable, and it never hurts to have something like this. It's like having stock in a good company, and you can shoot it, enjoy it at the range, unlike stocks. At least I don't think you can shoot stocks. Maybe I'm wrong. As we have here, we have the Colt M45A1. Now, I definitely bought this because I thought the history was weird. How the U.S. Marine Corps was buying a new production 1911 type gun in the 21st century. These aren't particularly collectible, at least not when I bought this, back when Colt was still making them. Now with Colt being under CZ, it might become so. And I definitely wanted a modern 1911 I could shoot, but that wasn't it. It was mostly just the oddities, plus I wanted to study the mechanical differences, which that has to do with history, seeing the historical changes they made. I will shoot it, why not? And it is worth something. But mostly I have it just because I enjoy the history behind this peculiar last USGI 1911 variant. And then we come to the HK Mark 23, the crew served pistol. I thought about selling this several times during the COVID, even before. So why didn't I? It's huge, it's impractical, and they bring a lot of money. I bought this one new, but on a deep discount from CD&N, years ago. So why didn't I? Because for whatever doofy reason, I love shooting this gun. I just do. And it's so crazy big that if you pull this out at the range, you make heads turn. Even I know this. So, yeah, my main reason for not selling it is because I enjoy shooting it, which tells me my main reason for owning it is I like shooting it. It has not a whole lot of collector value, and even the historical value is quite limited since SOCOM only had a few of these, and they're out of service now. It's not anything particularly special. So, little bit of history there. Mild collector value to HK guys looking for one, but it's not a special edition or anything. I just have it because I found it for a good price, and I discovered I really enjoy shooting it. Plus, one day I swear I'll get a 45 suppressor for it. One day. I've been saying that for 10 years. But I will. I promise. So yeah, hopefully that gives you an idea why I own each of these. And with that, let's move on to some boomsticks. 590A1.
No malfunctions.
What am I doing? Pumping all the way forward.
I think you need a slightly longer length to pull.
I know. I don't know why all shotguns tend to have these just huge lengths to pull. When I was considering which guns to bring out for this video, these are the first ones to come to mind because they are really good examples of historical, collectible, and shootable. And of course, all have a 20-inch barrel, all have a heat shield, they're military style. On top we have my USGI Winchester Model 12. In the middle we have my Ithaca Model 37. And of course, the one you see in many videos, my Mossberg M590A1. And it would come as no surprise that I have this as a shooter. I just like Mossbergs. As I've said before, I enjoy the control layout. If I could see, I would probably enjoy the sights. I enjoy the feel of the gun. I like how easy it is to load the mag tube, top it off. I even like that this one has the shell feed stock. I intentionally put this on. And it's just set up the way I like it, with the heat shield and everything else. And who doesn't think a bayonet lug is practical? Yeah, I guess there is some history to the 590A1, but it's just one of the US's many 12-gauge pump shotguns. Anything would kind of fit the same role, and these are not collectible in the traditional sense because they've made millions of them. No, I have this because I enjoy shooting Mossbergs. Now the Ithaca, this is a reproduction. Would I like to have an original Ithaca trench gun from Vietnam? Damn right. But am I willing to pay for it? Nope. Am not and never have been. So when Ithaca, the modern one, announced this, I thought, neat. They put a lot of attention into history with the right buttstock, the thin butt plate, even the correct serial number, correct style Springfield type mount here. Takes the original 1917 bayonet, corncob with the sling swivel, all that good stuff. Is it a shooter? Sure, we've shot it. But if you're just wanting a shooter, even though this is a pretty light gun, there are better options today. Now, you get this because it represents the history of the Vietnam era gun, or even World War II gun, without having to pay the historical tax that you would finding an original, plus running the risk of getting ripped off. That's the problem about collectability. If you don't know what you're getting, haven't done your homework, you can find that you buy a fake or the gun has an issue. Problem. So sometimes if you're just wanting it for the historical value, kind of as a representative piece that you can also shoot as a secondary role, a well-made reproduction is fine. For some reason I own a reproduction M1A1 US Carbine paratrooper. And then finally, the real one. This is not a shooter. I have not and probably will never shoot this gun. I see no reason. And again, historical value is very good with this, but there are tons of US service 12-gauge shotguns. And I wasn't willing to pay the price for one. I mostly acquired this because a friend was selling it, and I thought, much like with the Ithaca 1911A1, these are becoming so collectible. It's something good to have. I enjoy studying it. I enjoy taking it out and working the action, checking it out. but my primary reason for grabbing this, it just seemed like a smart move. And I really never thought I would own a authentic, original World War II era trench gun, but there it is. By the way, he knew what it was worth. We worked at a fair price. I didn't take him to the cleaners, but I also didn't spend, what, $5K or whatever they're bringing now. But yeah, I own it because it's just a good collectible piece. I could have easily picked up a reproduction, say, Chinese 97. And that's what I did with the Ithaca. And for the Mossberg, I could have very easily had a Remington 870 or anything else. I just like shooting these. In fact, I own 2 Mossbergs still, even after the craziness of last year. I had more. I sold a couple, cut my 2 favorites, this one and the Shockwave. Maybe I'll even shoot it this weekend. You never know. And with that, let's move on to PCCs. Pistol caliber carbines, rifles firing pistol rounds. PS90. And she worked. Beretta Storm. Hold open. Let's go in reverse this time and talk about the one I have really for collector, at least number 1. My IMI Mini Uzi Carbine. Now, as I've said in previous videos, the Mini Uzi is my favorite configuration. I like it more than the full size or the micro. However, if I just wanted it as a shooter or even a historical piece for the mechanics of it, Vector Arms made some very good minis. Quite a few we had in the store were even built on IMI receivers with IMI barrels. And they ran well. I owned one for many years. In fact, we reviewed them before. The issue was the prices started to jump up on these. A friend of mine that lives in Hawaii is a Uzi collector, and he told me a few years ago, hey, the minis are really going up. If you can find one for not bad money, pick it up now. You won't regret it. And he was right. I had kind of just thought, well, the Vector's fine. But then when the originals started to go nutty, I picked it up, and I'm glad I did. And I will shoot this. I do on occasion. I'm not too worried about that. But I mostly have it for the collector's end of it because the opportunity arose and I could. And that's the same reason it has the doofy Batman length barrel. Normally, this would be a prime candidate for SBRing. But if you SBR one of these pre-banned guns, you run a major risk of devaluing it because you have to engrave it. Anyway, it's on the registry. So with great reluctance, I'm keeping it as is. But that also means I don't shoot it as much. And historically, it does definitely take away from the authenticity. But as much as I do like it, I have to say I probably do have it for collector's purposes more than anything else. My full-size Uzi, which is a Model A, is more my shooter gun, and it looks it too. Moving down to more of the historical gun, we have the FN PS90. This is one I do want to SBR, but I thought I had a barrel lined out, and it fell through, and I just haven't had time to look for another one. This is my 3rd one to own. Hopefully I keep this one. Why do I keep selling them? At least in the past. Money, essentially. They cost a lot to shoot. I would love it if 5.7 ammo were easier to find and cheaper. So this is not primarily a shooter, but not because of my own choice. I really love shooting this gun. But at $1 a round or more these days, and 50 cents or more around in the past, it's a special occasion gun, and I hate that, but it is. But historically, mechanically, oh my goodness, this gun has a lot of interesting things. The new cartridge that FN introduced for it, the top-feeding magazine, even the single-power optic that it originally came with, the ambidextrous features. This gun has a ton of just first and uniquenesses, and that has seen quite a widespread use. In fact, probably pretty soon I'm going to be putting out a full historical and mechanical breakdown video on this gun. But yeah, there's a collector element, but not much. There's a lot of these out. If anything, the price has kind of come down in recent years. You know, I was saying that being blind kind of limits my shooting and ability to get to the range, that kind of thing. It also limits me on both being able to edit out things on videos like this and know when the low battery warning is on this camera. Sorry about that. Anyway, as I was saying, yeah, prices, if anything, have dropped sometimes over the years on these. So I wouldn't say this is a great investment collector. There are better options, let's put it like that. Now, this is more of a historical mechanical gun, and it would potentially be a great shooter gun, except for the ammunition issue. And some people have said, well, why don't they do one at another caliber, like 9mm? The thing is, this gun is designed around 5.7. It would be a major project to rework it to fire 9mm or something like that. But I do like having it. I'm glad to have another one, and I hope this time it sticks around. And finally, the gun you saw in the spring, and one I've had a few years, the Beretta CX4 Storm. There's no real history behind this to speak of. It wasn't the first or anything. It's not being used by any major militaries. India uses it, and a few other places, and police departments have used it. But really, it doesn't have major historical importance. It's not really historically all that impactful or mechanically. But goddamn, do I like shooting it. Ever since I first picked one of these up around 2003 in a store, ergonomically, it just fit me well. The grip, the placement of the controls, the stock, it fit well. And the fact that it uses common mags and common ammunition. And it doesn't even look too bad with the 16-inch barrel. But because I'm not satisfied with that, I had to get one with the 20-inch barrel. My only real gripe about it was that the ones that were out back then had a really crummy trigger. And while the ones from more recent years don't have amazing target triggers, they're fine. They've improved the trigger. So when I read about that, I picked up the first one I came across, and that just happened to be this one from Classic with the longer barrel. And I really like shooting it, and that's the reason I own it. It's just a good 9mm carbine shooter. Even added the side saddle for mags and just a El Cheapo dot scope. It is red and green though. But yeah, this is just a pure shooter gun, and one I take out a lot to let friends and family shoot, because a lot of people find it fun, and it is ambidextrous. So if you have a lefty, pop the charging handle to the other side, and you are good to go. Might shoot this one this weekend. Yeah, that's the reason for owning it. I've thought about selling it a few times and just thought, no, I'd miss it. I've kind of always wanted to own one. This is the first one, and probably will just keep on owning it. By the way, when I was picking guns for this, I had to actually actively avoid braced pistols. I was trying to think of actual PCCs, true carbines with stocks. I realized that a lot of the guns that we consider PCCs are actually still pistols, so pistol caliber pistol. It's like saying chicken fried chicken. With that, let's move on to rifles firing rifle bullets from rifle barrels. SIG 550. Held open. 551 LB. SG 552. She held up. Okay, you knew that either Swiss guns or AKs would appear in this video, right? And yes, I do realize I did just break the thing I just said about pistol caliber pistols. This is a rifle caliber pistol, I guess you could say. And typically I don't like having guns that are real similar, especially when they're this pricey. But I found it very difficult not to have all of these. And I realized it's because I have them for very different reasons. As I've said in multiple videos this year, my SG551LB, it's my favorite shooter. I like the 17.8-inch barrel, makes it very readily a carbine, no debating that. Bulge is neat. It has diopter sights, which again, if I could see, would be useful. Folding stock. It's not light, but it's not heavy. And part of that is thanks to this alloy lower, and I have mine set up with the US or the NATO Stanag lower, which, yeah, this being an all black with an alloy AR lower doesn't put it at the tops of the collector list. I mean, I know all of these SIGs are collectible to some extent, but yeah. And of course, I never dreamed to keep it mint in the box anyway. No, I just think this one splits the difference. Kind of like how I like the Mini Uzi. The mid-size 551 is just my favorite shooter, and I have this one configured the way I like. And when I bring one out, like when we had Tanner there, this is kind of the, I think, a great introduction to Swiss guns for your shooting people. And of course, my PE90 here. I have this for the history. You know, the PE90 is the semi-automatic version of the SGGW90, the SG550. And that's the one that's been produced in the hundreds of thousands for the Swiss military. They built around 30,000 PE90s for the civilian market. And they've made export models that have come here. So as a shooter, they are fun to shoot. No ifs, ands, or buts. The reason I like the 551 a little more, it's the 551's a little lighter. This is a little bit bulky up front because of the long gas system. And it's nice that it has a bipod, but it's not the most stable because it was designed to be a lightweight bipod. Plus it likes to fold forward. So, yeah, I just found the 551 to be a better shooter, although I still think the PE90 is a fun as hell shooter. Now, I like the history of the system and the mechanics, but if I wanted a collectible one, well, I've actually, when I got this, I sold my pre-ban 550-1. Those are probably still more valuable. Or I could have kept one of the new production PE90s or 550s. No, I went with this one. It's used. It has wear and tear. Not a whole lot, but some. That meant I could shoot it, and it also meant I was getting it primarily because I wanted that spot in the collection for history filled. If I wanted a collectible gun, there were better options. And if I wanted a shooter, well, again, I think this is better. But it kind of falls in the middle, and I really like it. Plus, it was kind of a late Christmas gift from Dave a few years back. So, I don't know. Has a little bit of a sentimental touch as well. Plus, hey, early whale-tail stock. And then finally, the one I have for collectability purposes, and the one that breaks the rules. The SG552. This is the only time a semi-automatic 552 has come into the USA for the commercial market. There were those law enforcement guns, SG552 SPs, but those were Title Class 3 guns. They had short barrels. These came in as pistols and were the only ones brought over commercially because SIG only made SIG San only made the 552 for a brief period of time, about 10 years. And then they upgraded to the 553, which in every way is a superior gun, so they took this out of production. But then a little over 50 parts kits were found in the basement of SIG, and per contract with JDI, they were built up into guns. Now, for historical value, they're not 100% because they're current production, with the pick rail upper. And as a shooter, well, you'd be best served by a 5.53. No question about it. They're more reliable and durable. And if parts break on a 5.53, you can replace them. If parts break on a 5.52, you're up the creek without a paddle. So this shouldn't be anyone's primary shooter. And as far as historical interest, while they're neat, while you see them in some video games, frankly, the 5.50, 5.51, and even 5.53 have all seen more military and police use. No, the reason to have these is because only 50 some odd had come into the USA, and that's probably going to be it. Now, the police guns that Midwest sold are neat for being earlier production, but they were also used, so condition can kind of vary. These came in as brand new guns, making them ripe for collecting. Although, since it's me, of course I shot it and did that, because that's kind of my point. Even though history is important and collecting is a factor in my head, I don't let either one get in the way of also shooting. I think some don't realize that shooting is actually very important to me and for me, at least as much as it can be in my particular situation. So let's have some final thoughts. Wrap this up. We'll end the video with a gun that absolutely doesn't fit the mold for my gun room at all. My little North American mini .22 revolver. No collector value to speak of, more than just being a gun itself. No history value at all, aside from just being a tiny little gun. And even though I do enjoy shooting it now and again, just to say I did, it's more for the interesting experience than anything else. Plus, 22 short, not gonna be doing a whole lot. I don't think my wife even now believes this is a real gun. Not just a real gun, it actually has 5 shots. That said, I just like it. I had it out just last weekend, just playing with it. Plus, you can always conceal this, even if you're buck naked. Ouchie on the hammer, though. No, for me, it's not a simple thing. If I could see, I would be a shooter. I'm sure I would. But even not being able to see, I really like getting out with guns. For one thing, it's just a good excuse to get outdoors. Fresh air, time with friends. For another, it does let me figure out if a gun is reliable, dependable, durable, and just kind of get a feel for the system. I do enjoy feeling how different operating systems work. They feel different. So, for customers, and it's just my own curiosity. I just enjoy doing it. Plus, I can get proficient with the ergonomics and handling of a gun. Loading and unloading magazines, working the action, the safety. Yeah. I do get something out of it. Is it anything like what you probably get? No, but that's my life, guys. I try to enjoy what I can enjoy. I am thankful for what I can get and can appreciate. And I don't tend to focus on what I can't. That's life. Now, history, I can fully appreciate the historical worth of a gun. That's probably why it does matter to me. But beyond that, I love history. And when I am holding a historical gun, I feel connected to it. It's neat to think about how this Mosin was there, or this Enfield was there, or even the Namba, any of the guns. It's really neat to be holding a physical, three-dimensional piece of history. And the fact that they still shoot, they still function, is really cool. I mean, it's neat how well guns are built. So that's kind of why the mechanics come in. Same with this little gun here. I gotta appreciate how tiny the lockwork is and cylinder. So it's mechanically, I guess. I guess I do have this because it is mechanically interesting. It's not much bigger than some of the big horse pills. You could probably swallow this cylinder. Who needs a real ejector? And certainly collectibility is the lowest on my list. I am mindful of guns' worth and value, but that's how I am about spending anything. I hate putting money into something where I know I'm going to lose it. That's why I'm loath to make alterations to guns like that mini Uzi. But I am willing to do it for like that PS90. But it's just something to know. I mean, guns are expensive. But as I tell people, it's not what you pay for them. It's what you can get back out of them. Now, that can be monetary. Let's say you pay $2,000 for a gun and you sell it for $3,000. That's great. On the other hand, you could pay $2,000 for a gun and sell it for $1,000. But did you get $1,000 worth of enjoyment, practice, experience out of it? You very well may have. So even though you lost dollars, you gained experience, knowledge, enjoyment, relaxation. Who knows? So collecting is really the third in my book for sure. Otherwise, I would have sold several guns that I have. But there are a lot of guns that I could easily sell today that I won't. They can be gone when I'm gone. These are so smooth for what they are. They're not very expensive either. And they're made in Provo, Utah. But yeah, I just thought this would be a fun response to Jay's videos and to clue you in on why I do what I do and a little bit about who I am. And I might make a follow-up, more opinion-oriented black box on my personal channel to go with this. We'll see. So let me know what you think. What are your priorities? Collecting, historical, shooting, and why? And what guns in your collection are there for which reasons? Which guns maybe hit all three equally, kind of like the Archer does for me? Or which guns really don't fit anything, but you still love having, like my little revolver here? Alright guys, let me know. I appreciate you tuning in, hanging out with me. If you could, please like, share, and subscribe. All that fun, good stuff. And if you'd like to help support the channel, you know the deal. It would be great if you visited our Patreon page. This is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon next time.